Hi guys, quick video. So cycling versus running, which one is best? Quick answer: cycling. Cycling wins, I would say. And I'll probably just talk for a bit about my reasons why. Hopefully try and give you guys a bit of direction if you're not sure which one to do. Try and give you perhaps the advantages of one over the other. And just different things to consider. So bit of background then. So I started cycling in January of 2015. So I borrowed my mate's bike for about a month or two, and I did that after watching June Riders videos. So when I first started watching him in November 2014, I would skip through all the cycling videos, and I think one day something just sort of clicked in my mind and thought, this actually looks really fun, I want to do it. Because you do these big 150-mile bike rides and you'd see the beautiful scenery and it kind of take your breath away, and I thought I want to do that, I want to experience that. So that's kind of what got me into cycling. And I've done quite a bit since then, so I've probably done about 2,000 miles since then. Probably not as much as some other people, but you know, I thought it was a good start. So anyway, I then got my bike in March, and I've had my Specialized since then, and I've absolutely loved it. So let's sort of talk about the differences between, you know, cycling and running. So let's just start off with, let's say, running. Running, the main advantage of running, I would say, is simply this: it's, you know, it's cheap. You know, if you've already got a pair of trainers or, you know, running shoes, you can go out there right now, you know, perhaps walk for a little bit and then just start running. It's very cheap. You don't need a lot of equipment, you don't need a lot at all. Cycling, however, can be a bit more expensive. So for cycling, you know, you need a bike. That could potentially cost you back a couple £100. If, you know, you're quite savvy, you could try and get you know, one off a relative or a friend, you know, who's not really using it anymore for cheap. You know, go to get a second-hand bike, whatever. But you know, it's going to cost you a bit of money at first. You're going to have to buy a helmet. Depending on the climate you live in, you really have to buy decent cycling clothing. So when I first started cycling, I remember, I think on my fourth bike ride or something like that, I cycled about 20 miles to a relative's house, and it was absolutely freezing. I was wearing some Nike running shorts, a Star Wars t-shirt, and perhaps a thin cotton hoodie, no gloves, and it was terrible. I was absolutely freezing. It took me so long to get home. All I could think about was getting home, and I'd come in freezing. I'd put loads of clothes on straight away to try and warm up. So cycling, depending on where you live, and most of you are going to have to do this, you're going to have to invest money on decent cycling clothing, which can be expensive. So for a jersey, you know, you could be looking at, you know, 40 quid, 70 quid. So for those of you watching America, I don't know, possibly $100. And it can be expensive. So I'll just talk you through what I've got. I've got a winter jersey, so that's long sleeve. I've got a summer jersey, so short sleeved. I have 2 pairs of cycling shorts, padded, and I also have a winter bib. So a bib is basically just the full, you know, overalls, and you have straps that come up like this. And I have 2 base layers as well. And then you've got cycling shoes. You need cycling shoes ideally, because if you don't clip in to your pedals, what can happen is your foot can just slide off, and what can happen is as it comes back around, it can hit your foot and jam up, and it's not the best. So straight away the money can initially start to pile up. So, you know, you've got the bike, you've got a helmet, you know, possibly cycling pedals, you know, cycling shoes. If you're cycling in winter, or, you know, let's say even spring or autumn, you're probably going to be in, you know, in a bib to stay warm. So you need a bib. You're going to need at least 2 different jerseys, one for summer, one for winter. If you try and wear your winter one in summer, it'll be too hot. If you wear your summer one in winter, it's going to be too cold. You'll need, you know, a waterproof or water resistant, you know, coat. It costs a bit more money. And that's kind of it. So they're sort of the things that I would kind of consider, you know, that you must sort of spend on a bike, because, you know, cycling clothing, I would say, is quite important, because the last thing you want is to be in the middle of nowhere, doing 20 miles an hour on your bicycle going down a hill or more, and because the wind will just freeze you when you're cycling through it. So that's sort of the differences straight away there in terms of price. So if you're trying to decide which one, that might be quite useful for you. So if you're 16 years old, you're still in school and don't have a job, then perhaps running is best for you. If you're perhaps a bit older and you've got a bit of cash, you could afford it, then go down the cycling route. So next comparison, let's look at cycling versus running in terms of safety and injuries. Cycling wins that one. So running versus cycling, running wins in terms of costs, but when we come down to safety, I'm going to be inclined to say that cycling is better, and simply for this reason: there is no impact in cycling. In running, your feet are pounding the ground like that, whereas in cycling, your feet are just turning in motion. So that's, I'd say, the biggest benefit. So I started cycling in February, and the only impact that's ever going to happen is if you come off, basically. And I've only come off, I think, 2 or 3 times. Once was when I dropped my chain because I was out in the rain for quite a while, and it caused everything to sort of seize up, and I was getting drop chain. Another time was when they closed the roads, and I went down this country road. They didn't put the appropriate signs up, and I had to turn back, and I tried to get back on my bike on a hill, and I was a bit inexperienced, and I kind of fell off. But with running, which I started again in 2015, I definitely noticed an impact. So when I started running, I could definitely feel it in my lower back. It was quite sore. Likewise, I think I could feel it in my knees a bit. Because at the end of the day, when you're running, you run on concrete generally. Most people, when they're out running, they don't have the option of running on grass, which is what we would naturally do. We instead run on concrete, which can be quite bad for us because the impact travels up through our bones. Likewise, if you're watching this and you're overweight and you're wanting to lose weight through exercise, I'm personally inclined to say that running is bad, because when you're running, you don't just have the weight of a normal person, you have all that extra weight that you're carrying as well, which is increasing the impact that your foot has when it strikes the ground. It's putting more strain on your skeletal structure, on your bones. I just don't think it's the best. Running for weight loss, I think, isn't good. The point about weight loss is this: number one, get your diet sorted. If you get your diet sorted, long term, you'll be okay. If you want to try and accelerate that weight loss, then do some cycling. Definitely good. But with cycling, it doesn't have that impact. Other safety considerations. So we just saw there, running has impact, whereas cycling doesn't. I suppose from another safety perspective, the problem you might have with cycling is where you live. So if you live somewhere which has, a lot of traffic, which can be quite dangerous. If you live in New York or London, I know London is a terrible place for cyclists. You look on YouTube and many of them are attacked viciously. No one, they're quite treated quite badly. Basically, there's not a lot of care for them. They're looked down upon almost. I personally wouldn't want to be a cyclist in London from the stuff I've seen. So that's just another thing for you to take consideration of. So what I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to tell anyone who's watching this to necessarily do one or the other, but I'm just trying to give you my experience and to make your own decision on which is best for you based on your own circumstances. So let's so far we have running beats cycling in terms of cheapness. Cycling, in my personal opinion, beats running in terms of safety, based on my own personal experience. So let's look at the third one, and I'll call this one convenience. So with running, you're very limited to what you can carry. You can't really run around with a 2-litre bottle, loads of Cliff Bars, because trying to carry all that's going to displace your weight. It's going to make it a lot harder. Cycling, you can carry so much stuff. So on my bike I have a top tube bag. So basically, imagine this is the top tube of the bike, the top part of the frame. So, and the handlebars are here. I have like a bag here, and I can just zip it open, put my hand in and get food out. I have another one which comes underneath here, so when I'm cycling I can look down, just pull the zip towards me, and I have two pouches which are very large, and I can carry two spare tyres, two spare tubes, loads of food. And on my saddle I actually have a big bag that I can put underneath my saddle, and I can carry loads of bananas and food and clothing. And cycling really enables you to go the distance. It gives you the convenience in terms of how much you can carry. You can carry a lot of water, and as a result of that you can really go the distance, whereas running you can't do. You're very limited, because after a while you're going to start to dehydrate, and if there's no shops around, there's nowhere for you to get water, you're going to start to become dehydrated, or you're going to have to just turn back and go home. So cycling definitely gives you more options in terms of convenience, because you can carry so much stuff with you. You can carry a lot of food. I've personally carried probably 2,000 calories of food with me before and eaten it as I've been out, and it keeps your energy up. And on a bike ride, you could go out for a 7-hour bike ride if you want to, or longer. I think the longest I've ever done is probably 11 hours, and you can't do that with running, can you? So with running, how long can the average person run for? Probably about an hour, about 2 hours. After a while it's going to become very hard, whereas cycling, because there is no impact, as long as you can keep your sugars in, you don't push yourself too hard, you're not training anaerobically all the time, you're not pushing yourself too hard, you can just go so much longer, you can do so much more, there's so much volume. And with me personally, I think cycling is, and I think I've said this before, it's a very almost can be almost spiritual, because you're out there for so long. It's draining, you're tired, you can be hungry, you just want to go home, but at the same time you can almost feel this intense feeling of euphoria, because it's such a great experience. You can just chill out, listen to music for hours, podcasts for hours, and I just think it's such a more relaxing sport than running. I do enjoy running, but it just doesn't quite compare to cycling, in terms of an experience like that. Are there any other considerations? I'm sure there's probably a few things there that I might have missed out, something that I might not have considered, but I think that's pretty much everything. So just to recap then, so running will always beat cycling when it comes to cost. Running is always cheaper. I personally think that cycling is safer in terms of the fact there's no impact. There is obviously the danger of other people, traffic and what have you, relative to running. But in terms of convenience, in terms of what you can carry, and just not the convenience but the experience, I personally think you'll always get more of an experience from cycling than running, just because with a bike you're able to carry everything you need with you. And it just allows you to do the distance and do the miles to get that experience, to really achieve stuff. So I hope that was useful, guys. Like I said, I'm not telling you to do one or the other. All depends. If you live in New York and you can't afford cycling, then running would be best for you. If you live in somewhere like I do, where the traffic isn't perhaps as bad, and I don't have a mortgage or kids, that I can afford a bike, so that's better for me. So it's all about what's best for you. Again, try not to look at them in terms of weight loss as such. Focus on your diet, and by diet I mean lifestyle, the vegan lifestyle, to ultimately get your weight sorted long term. The cycling and the running treat is sort of almost like a condiment to it, like what a small salad would be to a meal. The exercise should be to your overall weight loss goal. And don't just look at it in terms of weight loss, but look at it in terms of a transformation. The exercise transforms you, just not in terms of weight but also mentally. It can be a real experience, and for me cycling has been that. So I hope that was useful, guys, and anything else I can really go on about. So yeah, with cycling then and running, you have Strava. So Strava is highly recommended for any runner or cyclist because you can go on there. It has a lot of data, a lot of analytics, so you can see how you're doing. Cycling has a lot more data available for it, I think, personally, because power meters. So cycling from an analytical perspective, I would say, is definitely a lot better. What else? If you do go down the cycling route, make sure you get a bike fit. So a bike fit is basically where someone basically sets the bike up to match your body. So every single person has a unique riding style. When I didn't get a bike fit, I got injured as a result of it. Eventually got one, stopped me getting pains in my arches. If you do go down the cycling route, you want to have a cadence minimum of about 80 per minute. So that basically means that it will your feet will turn 80 per minute. If it drops below that when you're doing it intensely, there's the danger you're going to injure yourself, which is what happened to me. I developed a trigger point in my left quad from a combination of overtraining and low cadence, and it took me a good while to sort that out. So now I actually have mountain bike cranks on a road bike, so a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy, but at the end of the day means I can do the cadence I want up any hill pretty much. So instead of doing 40 cadence up a 14% gradient, I can now do 80 or possibly 70 on that one, on the smallest gear. Yeah, so I hope that was useful, guys. I probably have missed something out. I probably can't cover everything off in one video. If there's something that I've missed and you want me to cover off, put in the comments below, and I can always do another video on that, try and explain. Or if there's something that you didn't quite understand, let me know in the comments why, and I'll try and explain it. So I hope that was useful, guys. Until next time, God bless. I hope you're just informative, and I'll see you soon. Bye now. Chris here, back with another episode. So today I just want to talk about your mindset. Now then, a lot of people in society today that are ill, they can have almost a victim mindset, and by that what I mean is that that's kind of what got me into cycling. And I've done quite a bit since then, so I've probably done about 2,000 miles since then. Probably not as much as some other people, but I thought it was a good start. So anyway, I then got my bike in March, and I've had my Specialized since then, and I've absolutely loved it. So let's sort of talk about the differences between cycling and running. So let's just start off with, let's say, in January of 2015, I borrowed my mate's bike for about a month or two, and I did that after watching June Riders videos. So when I first started watching him in November 2014, I would skip through all the cycling videos, and I think one day something just sort of clicked in my mind and thought, this actually looks really fun, I want to do it, because you do these big 150-mile bike rides and you'd see the beautiful scenery and it kind of take your breath away, and I thought I want to do that, I want to experience. Hi guys, quick video. So cycling versus running, which one is best? Quick answer, cycling wins, I would say, and I'll probably just talk for a bit about my reasons why, hopefully try and give you guys a bit of direction if you're not sure which one to do, try and give you perhaps the advantages of one over the other, and just different things to consider. So bit of background then. So I started cycling running. The main advantage of running, I would say, is simply this: it's it's cheap. If you've already got a pair of trainers or running shoes, you can go out there right now, perhaps walk for a little bit and then just start running. It's very, very cheap. You don't need a lot of equipment, you don't need a lot at all. Cycling, however, can be a bit more expensive. So for cycling, you need a bike. That could potentially cost you back a couple £100. If you're quite savvy, you could try and get one off a relative or a friend who's not really using it anymore for cheap. Go to get a second-hand bike, whatever, but it's going to cost you a bit of money at first. You can have to buy a helmet. Depending on the climate you live in, you really have to buy decent cycling clothing. So when I first started cycling,